I might be wrong on that. But yeah, so kind of talked about it in the short a little bit. But Grizzly Bears are set to be reintroduced to Washington State after years of debate. So this, when I first saw this, I wasn't exactly sure. Oh, that's really cool. That is really cool. I mean, I have never personally eaten bear. I've heard black bear is really good, um, but I've just never had the opportunity. I would, given the opportunity. But grizzly bears are set to be reintroduced to Washington State after years of debate. Complicated process requires trapping, trucking, and moving bear by helicopter from Montana or British Columbia. So these would be grizzlies. These would be grizzlies. Um, Grizzly bears will be reintroduced to Washington State's North Cascade Mountain Range, the federal government said this week. A decision that followed years of bitterly divided debate. But it may still be years before the creatures step foot in the remote and rugged landscape, given that the complicated process requires trapping, trucking, moving bears by helicopter from British Columbia or northwestern Montana. Oh, guys, with all that being said, you can see right in the middle of your screen there where it says DNA Reptiles, there's that little Discord thing right there. If you go and get into my Discord, we can have you can have conversations with me. Like, you can call and we can actually have a discussion about stuff too. So if you want to be a little bit more involved than just typing and you want to actually do some talking or have your 2 cents put in, or you just want to be in the Discord, which we've been trying to keep up and have discussions, more people in there the better, then awesome. Like, I'd love to see you there if you're if you do Discord. Well, with that being said, there's a lot to be done before we could even come up with a timeline. This came out the 28th, so yesterday. This released yesterday. There's a lot to be done before we can even come up with a timeline, said Jason Ransom, a wildlife biologist at North Cascades National Park. For a project like this to be successful, it's really important to get the planning right. The National Park Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced Thursday that they hope to build a founder population of 25 bears over the next 5 to 10 years, releasing the animals in remote parts of the forest. Also, if you guys could, thank you for liking. If you could also share, if you know people who would like to be a part of this, we're going to go on for a few hours. So, whatever you guys want to do. But I appreciate you guys being here. The move would restore keystone species to the North Cascades, which is one of the best protected landscapes in the U.S. grizzlies. Which is one of the best protected landscapes in the U.S. Grizzlies were once found throughout the region, but thousands were killed for their fur. The bears haven't been spotted with certainty there since 1996, according to the National Park Service. Two agencies plan to release 3 to 7 bears each year. The goal is to get a population of 200 bears within 60 to 100 years. Here's a bit of a, I don't know. I think that what they're trying to do when they're talking about this is they're trying to get people to feel bad about the situation, that humans were the ones that took them out. And humans did take them out. 100%. Humans were the reason that these bears no longer live where they do. But there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. And the reason is because grizzly bears kill people. That's the easiest way to go about it. It's not that they do it all the time, but as a resident of Washington State, this news does not thrill me. I don't necessarily blame you. I can understand both arguments. Argument is humans took them out, and in order for the ecosystem to be as whole as possible, you have to have all the animals there that make it whole. I get that argument. The problem that I see is that nowadays humans take the role of top predator. Whether you like it or not, they do. There are enough people in every single state that like to hunt, as an example, that if you wanted things to be kept somewhat normal, you could have regulations set in place to take care of all of the extra animals like deer and stuff that these bears would eat. Now, bears don't only eat deer. Obviously, they eat a lot of vegetation. But like with the wolves, they especially in like places like Colorado, one of the things they say is that it helps keep the ecosystem in check because the elk or deer get too overpopulated. There are enough people that if you wanted to keep the elk or deer population in check, you would allow hunting. Yellowstone was a little different because you're not allowed to hunt in Yellowstone. It's a national park. But the elk still leave Yellowstone. And when they do, they hunt too. Fish run too. Yeah, well, depending on where they live, they do eat fish. It just depends on where they live. Not all of them do. Like up in Alaska, absolutely. That's one of their big, ways they get ready for the winter. But it's a lot more complicated than people think. And the argument is that we took them out, so we should put them back. Well, one of the reasons people took them out is because they killed people. And I'm not against re-releasing them. My issue, and it's not even necessarily an issue, is that there's a lot of people in Washington, especially in like the Seattle, Tacoma area. The population is centered in those areas. But there are people who live out there. Now, we get a little further down the article. The North Cascades is one of 6 areas where federal agencies are pursuing grizzly restoration. Advocates say the effort will make the overall ecosystem healthier. Our culture had a war on these species and we know better now. This is a chance for us to tell a different story, said Gordon Congdon, a retired orchardist and conservationist who lives in Wenatchee, Washington, who has supported the restoration effort. We think by restoring the grizzly bear, that improves the ecology of the environment, which benefits other animals and benefits the diversity of habitat. Where is Wenatchee, Washington? I am curious on this. Let's see. Google Maps. I want to see where this place is, where this guy lives. Wenatchee, Washington. Let's see. Google Earth would be a little better. Because if I'm right, this guy probably doesn't live in an area where he'll ever run into this. I'm in southwest Washington. I live about 9 miles from Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. I already see problems with mountain lions because of human encroachment. The cougars are trying to expand. Yeah, the cougars are trying to expand here too. All right. Okay, exactly my thought. So this guy... Okay, so the North Cascades, this is where they're planning on releasing these bears. And he lives right here in Wenatchee. Okay, so along this river. He doesn't live, you got Tacoma and Seattle on this side. He lives in a side that's not as densely populated, but as you can see, it's got a mountain range right here before it even starts getting into forests. Now he doesn't live super far away, but he doesn't live in the middle of the woods here. He doesn't live where these bears... He lives relatively close. I guess. Let's see. Measure. So I'm going to say even the southern point of North Cascades. Length meters. Let's see. In miles. He lives about 80 miles away. Yeah, he lives 80 miles away from the southernmost point of where these bears would be. Possibly. He's not worried at all about what these bears could do. He just thinks that, a retired orchardist and conservationist. Orchardist, does that mean he grows stuff? Is that what that is? Or I think that's what it means. And it was supposed. We think by restoring the grizzly bear, that improves the ecology of the environment, which benefits other animals and benefits the diversity of the habitat. Ransom says grizzlies turn over soil, spread seeds, and can move and thrive in a lot of habitats. As climate change reshapes the environment, bears are expected to fare relatively well. I think their ability to move in really broad spectrum of foods they need bodes well for them. They can be one of the climate change survivors, Ransom said. Putting back a species like that builds resilience in the ecosystem in the face of change. Opponents, however, worry the bears present a safety risk to people and will stray into lowland areas with farm and livestock. That group includes some farmers and ranchers near the border of the landscape where the bears will make a new home. I went to Washington in 1999 to help butcher a whale. Back then, no bears or wolves, just cougars. They're scary to some, but bears are the tertiary consumer in the food chain. I should know that word. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that having a bear there necessarily means that they're just going to go in there and just kill and eat everybody. I don't. I know that bear attacks on people are relatively rare. Part of that is because where bears live tend to be away from people. They have low densities, so they don't have high numbers. But bear attacks do happen. And now, in this case, unlike the wolf situation, we're about to read, the government is going a little bit different on this than they are, or doing things a little bit different. For more than a decade, Washington State has struggled to keep wolves from killing livestock and prevent people from illegally harming wolves. We already have predator issues in the state. We don't need another apex predator, and we can't deal with with what we have, said Rachel McClure, a rancher who is the secretary of Okanogan County Cattlemen's Association. We're busy dealing with wolves. We don't need to be thinking about bears. I don't necessarily blame her. McClure said that she suspects grizzlies will wander from the terrain ecologists choose. They're not going to stay where you put them. Federal agencies are sensitive to such concerns, but Ransom said release sites would be in high-quality habitat far away from everybody. Andrew Lavelle, a Fish and Wildlife Public Affairs Office, said the area of habitat within Washington State is roughly the size of New Jersey, and roughly 85% of that is under federal management. Grizzly bears have huge... The rumor has it that wolves are already traveling through the Cascades as a natural highway. Going up to St. Helens and Mount Adams area is going to be a lot more spooky than it already is. Well, you also got Bigfoot to worry about. Grizzly bears have huge humps on their backs because they are prolific diggers of roots and small growers. Yes, I did know that. Of course, he's not worried that the bears might do. It's convenient for him to make this statement, getting paid, keeping people comfortable with this said in mind till they what? I can't read that. Till they make their way to people. Well, it's going to eventually happen. It's 100% going to eventually happen. Now, the federal government has also designated the grizzly bear in this project as a non-essential experimental population under the Endangered Species Act, which gives more legal flexibility. People will be allowed to kill grizzlies to protect humans from bodily harm, and federal officers will be allowed to relocate or kill the bears if necessary. In limited cases, with government authorization, private landowners will be allowed to kill grizzlies if they get close to livestock and are a threat. But legal action is not the first tool in the toolbox, Lavelle said. The bears will be captured in late summer or early fall, according to Ransom, using what's called a culvert trap, which looks like an elongated steel drum with a trap door. Once inside, the creature will be anesthetized, receive a veterinary exam, and get fitted with the radio collar so biologists can track their whereabouts. The bears will be shipped in the traps to staging locations when helicopters could lift them into the wilderness for release. Joe Scott, the International Programs Association director at Conservation Northwest, said grizzlies' recovery is slow, challenging work. Female grizzlies typically don't reproduce until 5 years of age and rarely wander out of their home terrain. Many cubs don't survive to reach a reproductive age. As long as it's taken to get here, it's just the start of this. The actual implementation is not a slam dunk, Scott says. Wolves don't want anything to do with people. No, they don't want anything to do with people. You're right about that. But that doesn't mean that most animals don't want anything to do with people. That's not the problem. You're going to eventually have people run into these animals in awkward situations, whether it be a young animal that is learning how to be on its own and ends up attacking somebody because they're hungry, like mountain lions tend to do. There was just the 21-year-old in California that was killed by one. There's, stories throughout the years, especially out west, of mountain lions attacking people, young mountain lions, who are like in their first year or few months alone, where they're hungry and they attack people. It just happens. It's something that you have to live with. Or a mother defending its young. Same thing with bears. Bears, for the most part, will leave you alone. You get the very few rare ones that decide they want to attack and kill somebody because they're hungry. But oftentimes it's a mother grizzly who's protecting their young and will just straight up attack somebody because they think that they're a threat to their young. It's not necessarily about... The problem is that most animals that would attack people tend to be smaller and people can fend themselves. But when you get a bear or a wolf or a mountain lion, these are bigger animals. So when they do decide to do that, you have to take into consideration that the possibility of somebody being hurt or killed is a lot higher with an animal that large, especially a grizzly bear. Grizzly bears can accidentally kill you without even trying. He added that starting with 25 bears should allow the population to ramp up slowly. It gives it a chance for people and bears to get used to each other in a place we haven't seen them in several decades. So I will give them that. They're trying to do it slow, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a better situation than when you have with the wolves in Colorado. But that still doesn't... It's a tough one. Let's see if there's any other information on this. Let's see what this says. Let's see.
The last confirmed sighting of a grizzly bear in the North Cascades was 28 years ago, but that could soon change as the beasts are being reintroduced to the range with the help of the federal government.
Grizzly bears roam the North Cascades for thousands of years until white settlers came in and decimated the population for their pelts. Now, the only place you're likely to see them around here is the city.
White settlers. Yeah, technically, but it wasn't just for their pelts. They killed people, so they killed them. This is a bad decision. These bears are aggressive and are below the strength of polar bears, which is the most powerful bear there is. The grizzly bear is nothing but a menace to people. I wouldn't say necessarily nothing but a menace. I don't think that that's necessarily true. There's plenty of places where bears and people can live together in relative peace. But my issue is putting them in places where no one has really been in a very long time, or none have been, so the people don't know how to deal with them in these situations. Wolf dens aren't located near hiking trails. They're remote and hard to find. Yeah, usually.
Fern came to us from Montana.
At Seattle's Woodland Park Zoo. Now, the National Park Service and U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife are bringing the bears back. They plan to bring 3 to 7 grizzlies from the Rocky Mountains or British Columbia to the North Cascades annually over the next 5 to 10 years. The goal is to rebuild a population of 200 bears in about a century. The big change in this plan, however, is to allow landowners to kill a grizzly with a permit under specific circumstances.
Possibly, some livestock that have been killed, and that there has been an attempt made to capture those bears that has been unsuccessful. And if those kinds of conditions are met, and depending upon where this occurs on the landscape, that is an option.
Well, they seem to be taking it a little bit more conservatively than the wolf situation. Done some hiking through the Indian Heaven Wilderness area. Cougars, for the most part, will avoid us. Black bears are going to run, same as coyotes. What is a wolf going to do? Most of the time, they're not going to do anything to people. People aren't really too much of at least here. Ask France back in the 1700s what a wolf would do, and they would say a wolf's going to eat you. So throughout history, it's changed. It's definitely different than it used to be. Wolves used to be way more of a threat. How many wolf attacks have there been? Wolf attacks, United States. I don't know how many. List of wolf attacks in North America. Excuse me. Victims date 2008. There's 1. 2008. There's 2. 2018. 3. Wait. No. I was reading that wrong. Ugh. 2010. 1. 2005. 1996. 1989. 1943. 1942. 1923, 1922, 1922, 1893, 1890s, 1888. So, from what it seems is that there hasn't been many. Burner, a teacher and an avid jogger, was discovered dead along the road by snowmobiles who found wolf tracks in the adjacent snow. The Alaska State Medical Examiner ruled that her death was caused by multiple injuries due to an animal mauling. A series of necropsies performed on wolves culled in the surrounding area shortly after attack ruled out rabies, sickness, or wolf-dog hybridization as being causes of the attacks. The verified case was notable as being the first recorded fatal wolf attack in Alaska in which DNA evidence was gathered to confirm wolf involvement. That was a predatory attack. Predatory. Captive. Okay, so somebody owned that one. Captive, someone owned it. A rabid one. Died of rabies. An Inuit boy. Inuit hunter. Rabid. I mean, there are situations where wolves have attacked. 2010 was the latest one. It was predatory. But that's just in the United States. I'm never hiking there again. Well, there's plenty of places where bears do live, where people go out and have no issues. I mean, Yellowstone. Here's the thing. Yellowstone, there's a lot of bear attacks. Only one in Alaska in the 1990s. A teacher jogging in remote Alaska with headphones on. Yep, that's one. Yeah, that was it. Well, that one was in 2010. But Grizzly attacks United States. Okay, fatal bear attacks in North America. All right. Last year, this was the one where the black bear tried to eat him on his property. I covered this last year. That okay, a lot of these are going to be black bears. Okay, okay, so I'm thinking of okay, here we go. Oh yeah, there's not many black bear attacks. I feel like there's been more. Are those deaths? I think these are people who have died. Because there's been more attacks, but all right, let's see. Brown bears. Got yeah, that's one, and she was tiny, under 5 foot. Got my dates wrong. Oh, gotcha. Here we go. 2023 in Alberta, a wild brown bear. Oh, I remember reading about this. A husband and wife. 2023 in Yellowstone. 2022 in Alaska. 2022 in Montana, 2021 in Montana, 2021 in Alberta, 2021 in Alberta, 2021 in Yellowstone, 2020 in Alaska, and 2020 in Alaska. So there's been a couple of deaths due to bears in Yellowstone over the past few years. Oh, this is only going into... These are from the 2010s, because here, polar bear. Yeah, that was last year in Alaska. It was a mother and her son, mother and son, walking back from school. I remember talking about that. Very sad. Black bears. More black bears in the 2010s. See, brown bears in the 2010s, Northwest Territories 2019, Yukon 2018, Alaska 2018, Wyoming 2018, Alaska 2018, Montana 2016, Yellowstone 2015, Yukon 2014, Northwest Territories 2014, Alberta, Canada 2014, Wyoming 2014, Alaska 2012, Alaska 2012, Wyoming 2011, Wyoming 2011, Montana 2010, Wyoming 2010. Okay. The point of this is bears. These are all bear deaths in the past. Okay, that goes down to the 1800s. Bears do kill people. They do. It's unfortunate, but when bears run into somebody and attack them, there's a higher chance that something bad is going to happen to them. I mean, Grizzly Man. Grizzly Man's a great example. He lived with them for a long time, and that was a weird situation. The whole school witnessed a polar bear eat the mom and baby. They had no curtains. Traumatic for the whole village. Yeah. It was... Well, from my understanding, there was like a snowstorm going on. They couldn't see anything or couldn't see it coming until it was too late. Ugh, that would have been a rough way to go. Would not have enjoyed that at all. So, especially in places like Yellowstone, where you can't really... People go hiking in a place like Yellowstone where these animals are just living as wildly as they possibly can. And they're doing as well as they possibly can because it's a protected area. And they do what bears do sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. And you do the same thing in a place like Washington, you're going to run into issues eventually. But that's also just kind of living with these animals. Like, we have alligator attacks here every year. We have a few people who die per year from alligators. I don't necessarily have too much of an issue with people. People want to get rid of them, and I'm like, why? There's no reason to. You just live alongside of them. It's a little different. My brother-in-law was eaten whole in 1990s by a polar bear. 11 feet tall. Oh, jeez. What was in the 90s? Let's see. I hate to do this. Let's see. Brown bear, black bear. Let's see. This was from the 90s. Polar bear. Does any one of them ring a bell? Well, Carl Stalker was 28. He was the only male that died in Alaska. Was walking with his girlfriend. He was chased and consumed in the middle of the town. The bear was shot and killed by near Stalker's corpse in Point Lake. Oh. Well, that's your brother-in-law that we're looking at. Oof. Well, I am sorry to hear that. How did... Ugh. Damn. Not a good way to go. Not a good way to go at all. Jeez, I'm sorry. Not good at all. But, very unfortunate situation. But this stuff does happen. Bears are no joke. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be there, though. So, you know what? I think people need to realize what all of this implies. Because the let's see, keep my wolves, cougars, and bears. You can keep your gators, snakes, and crocs. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I will keep my wolves, cougars, and bears. You can keep your gators, snakes, and crocs. Yeah, well, we have cougars here too. We have Florida panthers and bears. We have black bears. We have a lot of black bears. We have a huge population of black bears. How many black bears in Florida? I want to say it's like 4,050 roughly. We have a lot of them. I've seen a few of them. So I mean, it's I've run into a few of them while driving, especially in Ocala. So like, in here, the Ocala National Forest, I have seen a few black bears in here. There is, yeah. Oh, it's a little, okay, right down here, sorry. Yeah, in this area right here. There are a ton of black bears in here. Basically, any of these dark green spots in Florida will have black bears. And then when you get farther down, there's a lot of them here in Babcock Ranch. A lot of them there. So you need your wits about... Yeah, exactly. You need your wits and be aware of your surroundings while you're in their environment. Because they do live there. They have to have a place to live. Hasn't Glacier National Park had attacks also? I'm sure it has. Alaska's a big place. Yeah, I'm sure it has. All of these places where these bears live have. I mean, grizzly bears used to range down into Mexico. Let's see. Smithsonian probably won't let me actually look at it. Oh yeah, lands with the bear that killed Michelle Coons. Glacier National Park's busy season comes to an abrupt halt in the summer of 1967. In a matter of hours, two grizzly bears had acted as they never have before in the park's history. Several miles apart, each bear had mauled a young woman on the same day in the dark, early hours of August 13th. Two 19-year-olds, Julie Helgeson from Minnesota and Michelle Coons from California, were both asleep under the big sky of northwest Montana when grizzly bears found them and carried them off. Oof. That's not good. That would not be a good way to go. Not a good way to go at all. Yeah, it happens when you have big predators in these areas. It's unfortunate, but I mean, honestly, what are you really going to do about it? What are you really going to do about it? And these animals are going to be released back into the environment. It's frustrating, but that's just the way they are, and that's... Honestly, I don't even really know what to say about it other than, like, this is going to happen. These bears are going to be released, and we're just going to have to deal with the fallout of that. Let's see.
Grizzly bears in Washington state. The hotly debated topic is now in the wait-and-see period.
A public comment period wrapped up in November, and the next step won't come till next year. Fox 13's Matthew Smith has been reporting on the efforts to return grizzlies to the Cascades. And recently he had the chance to talk with the biologist that helped move dozens of grizzlies into Montana's Cabinet Mountains.
We're looking at a grizzly bear leaving what's known as a culvert trap. It's the most typical tool used to move.
And they immediately attack each other.
Move one of these large bears from one area to another. It's also a situation that's played out repeatedly in Montana's Cabinet Mountains, an area that at one point saw its bear population dwindle into the single digits.
I think the cabinets represent an example of how it can occur.
Recently, I caught up with Wayne Castworm at Woodland Park Zoo. Here, you can see a grizzly bear in the Living Northwest area. But the hope for Castworm and others is that one day, bears like this will be in the wild.
We'd be looking at young bears in order to make the move. Bears that are, number one, maybe more adaptable to a new landscape, but also bears with their reproductive life ahead of them, because these bears are going to be the basis for jump-starting a population.
Castworm and colleagues did something similar in northwest Montana. Today, there's a population of grizzlies there in the mid-30s, but that work didn't start from scratch like it would here. What is familiar, though, is the push and pull seen during meetings and written comments about the grizzly. Comments that have pitted people within our state against one another.
We already have this oversaturation of predators.
From those on the east side, where numerous farm organizations have come out against the reintroduction to grizzlies, to tribes. In our own area alone, you have various groups on opposing sides. One local tribe council writing, quote, "The Sauk-Suiattle Indian tribe does not hesitate in initiating litigation and all other means necessary to preserve the promises made in its treaty with the United States," adding, "Consider this as a letter of opposition." Meanwhile, the Upper Skagit...
What did the treaty say? I'm interested in what the treaty said that means not to release the bears.
Tribe praised reintroduction plans, writing, quote, "We respect the grizzly bear's right to coexist, just as it did with our ancestors for thousands of years before contact with the first Europeans to enter our homeland."
Not that, the public is 100% supportive, but in the early days of this, we had a lot of concern from the public, and it was expressed in a variety of means, but those have diminished quite a bit.
While no two spots are the same in terms of sentiment or ecology, Castworm tells me his decades-long work in the Cabinet Mountains could serve as a blueprint.
Now, I have said this before, is that, they'll do it to an animal like a wolf that you tend really not to have any issues with wolves and people directly. Oh, we'll wait until they do it to a grizzly bear. And sure enough, they are.
Balance, again, we've taken that population from single digits back up to 30 to 35 animals, and we're seeing reproduction going on as well by the bears we've put there. And in fact, from some of the initial bears that we've put there, we're now into the third generation arising from those bears, which I think points to the success of the program.
So you might be wondering what actually happens next. Hasworm and other biologists with U.S. Fish and Wildlife are poring over thousands of comments that have previously been made. They'll pull them all together and make comments or responses to questions that the public had. A final EIS, or environmental impact statement, will then come out in spring of 2024, and that should give us a better idea whether or not grizzlies could actually be appearing in Washington state.
So we know now that they are. So, it's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. I wonder what other... So, like, there are certain species that are moving on their own. Like, you have, let's see, mountain lions as an example. Mountain lions extending range. The eastward expansion of mountain lions in the United States. Confirmed sightings, that's a bunch of gibberish. This was in March 2nd of 2024. Let's see. Retrieving a trail camera is a bit like Christmas. There are gifts. They're waiting to be opened and just show the world for the first time. So when I looked over the image from a camera I had placed at my favorite elk hunting area, I was delighted to find that among the images of deer and elk were a single image of a night prowling cougar. As luck would have it, last year at a different location on Island Park, I forgot to retrieve a camera. When I finally picked it up in spring, I found yet another image of a mountain lion, this one in the winter. Okay, where is this? Where is this? Seems that males are leading the charge. In 2011, a male was killed by a car in Connecticut. Genetic analysis linked this animal to a population in the Black Hills of South Dakota. He had left a genetic trail that revealed that he had traveled through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Then went international, spending time in southern Ontario before moving through New York to Connecticut. Really? Female lions typically don't stray far from their natal areas. However, some must be getting the urge because there have been 3 populations documented in Nebraska in the past 20 years. Oklahoma had 77 confirmed sightings from 2002 through December of 2023. Most of these are trail cam sightings, so sex is undetermined, but several in-hand animals were females. Of particular interest is that the source populations for animals actually handled in Oklahoma were in 3 different states: Colorado, South Dakota, and Nebraska. As of 2023, Missouri had 117 confirmed sightings, and since 2010, sightings in Indiana were increasing dramatically. Lions are on the move. It is interesting that elk are getting a big boost from conservation organizations to repopulate the original eastern ranges. You can find elk in Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Virginia, West Virginia, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Oklahoma, and more. All these states now have resident elk populations courtesy of largely of efforts by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Mountain lions, on the other hand, get a lukewarm welcome when they show up unannounced and on their own. This likely stems from the persistent view of lions and all other predators as bloodthirsty killers, savagers of children, livestock, and decimators of deer herds, none of which is true. Long way from home. Yeah, I mean, that. Here's the thing. If you told me 10 years ago that we'd be having this many sightings all over the place like we are, it would be a little bit difficult to believe. But now, from everything I'm seeing, they are roaming that far. I mean, Tennessee, especially, like, my wife is from Tennessee, and I heard a story a couple months back from one of her friends that they were hunting and they were on this property and they had seen the tracks from one, and they had like rumors of them for years, like, oh yeah, there's mountain lions here, but I'm like, yeah, right, there's none there. And I looked it up, and there were a few years back, roughly around the time that this happened, there was like a string of them in the exact area that they lived. Mountain lions, while not an animal to mess with, have a reasonable history with humans. There are 29 recorded human fatalities and 171 non-fatal attacks from 1890 to 2017. In 127 years. Seriously, yes, but compared to man's best friend, they are kitty cats. Okay, well, we can go into the dog thing. We get the dog things. We get that. Dogs do kill a lot of people, but we're around them constantly. And they do say this. If those numbers held true over time, then the 127-year history of lion attacks would yield from 2,540 to 3,810 fatalities from domestic dogs. Among senior citizens, falls account for, okay, blah, 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 we get that. Scientists who are tracking mountain lion expansion estimate that lions will have established populations all the way to the East Coast within 20 to 25 years if left alone. That is good news, as there are actually some good ecological arguments why Easterners should welcome mountain lions with open arms. Yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against that at all. Okay. Mountain lion range expansion. Let's see. The eastward expansion of the mountain lions. Yeah. Look at that. Of course it won't let me look at it. Well, that's dumb. Alright, well, there's some more maps. Yeah, Missouri, Oklahoma. I mean, all for it. Go ahead. This is their current range. Their historic range was the entirety of the United States, because they go all the way through South America. They do have a huge range. So, like, there's no danger of them being wiped out completely. It's just their current, home range expansion is going to places where a lot of people live. And that's what people are worried about. Summer of 2004, I had just snuck into my cubicle. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get blah, 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 blah. Where is the map? I want to see the map. Are they going to show the map or no? Okay, here we go. Cougar conformations per county, 1990 to 2017. Huh. Yeah, I mean, they're... Oh. I didn't realize that there was some found that far north. Like, I know they did say Connecticut, but New York... What is that? Delaware, Massachusetts, Maine, and whatever part of Canada that is. I'm not as familiar with Canada's geography. It's pretty good. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, that's a great thing. More power to them. So these predators are going to keep on with their expansion. They're going to keep on being reintroduced over the next few years. I think overall it's a good thing. I'm not against the wolves being reintroduced to Colorado. I just think that we have to be smart about it and understanding that there's more to it than just put the animals back. Because there's people involved with all of this. And there's really nothing you can do about the fact that people have to make a living too. And if you're reintroducing an animal that people aren't used to that area, you're going to run into some problems. You are.